Well, good evening, everybody. I am Teresa Beekler. If you don't know me, I am the event manager for the WIA, and I'm very excited to have everybody joining. And I know we'll be getting more as we settle into the evening. I want to make sure to remind everybody to put their uh, computers on mute. It is kind of disturbing when we have black background music or background noise coming through. We do have chat open, so if you have any questions for Mike, please put them in chat. We will have a question and answer session at the end. If I feel that I can kind of gently break in as Mike is presenting, I might ask a question during that time frame. We are recording tonight's meeting. That is something that after the evening is through and you would like to have a copy of the recording, you can always email me. I am at events@wallcoveringinstallers.org. So please feel free to do so. I do want to go ahead and at this time and uh, present to you Mike Bruno. And Mike started in the wall covering industry. And hold on to that word industry because he's going to circle back to it. He started in 1974, fresh out of high school. His first job was a small family owned regional distributor in Brooklyn, New York, called Washington Wall Coverings. He was hired to work in the warehouse, picking and packing orders. At the time, he had no idea what he wanted to do with his life, and he probably shouldn't have known at that point in his time frame. I don't think many of us did, or where his career might lead him. He simply kept showing up, laughing, learning, and growing. One opportunity led to another, and before he knew it, 42 years has passed. Mike left Washington Wall Coverings as vice president of operations just before the company closed its doors. That transition opened a new chapter in his career, joining the operations team at Thibaut, where he continues to work in his 10th year with and in support of multiple teams across the organization. Mike has a passion for the wall covering industry and the incredible history behind wall covering. And it is my great pleasure to introduce to you Mike Bruno.
Thank you, Teresa. Much appreciated. And good evening, everybody. And thank you so much for the invitation and to spend some time with you this evening. Um, you've all seen that slide on probably on social media. The photo's kind of old, and this one's probably a little bit more accurate. Um, Actually, it's a pretty good resemblance when you think about it. Um, so Teresa mentioned the word industry. Um, that's going to come up a lot in the next bit of the conversation. Um, think about for a moment the path that each of us have chosen in life. Of all the professions, trades available, we ended up in wallpaper. It sounds almost funny when you say that, and when you say it out loud, wallpaper. I mean, we look at ourselves and shake, shrug our shoulders and say, "How did we get here?" Um, but but when you're young, as Teresa pointed out, and nobody says one day that I'm going to dedicate my life to wall covering. Kids dream of being firefighters, baseball players, astronauts, doctors. Nobody in kindergarten draws a picture of themselves hand trimming a 36-inch grass cloth. Yet somehow here we all are. But for me, in this industry, it has become much more than a career. It became a foundation for an entire life. It was through this industry that I met my wife for 44 years. She had been hired at Washington Wallpaper as a temporary employee while still in high school. Working in the accounting department, we met, got married, started a family, built a wonderful home, raised two successful sons. When I look back on it, and I just lost my spot. Sorry about that, guys. Is okay. Okay. Sorry about that, folks. I was too quick on the mouse. When I look back, it's remarkable to realize that so many of life's important moments can be traced back to a warehouse job at a wallpaper company in Brooklyn. As I suspect, many of you have similar stories. Friendships are formed, family businesses passed from one generation to the next, careers started by accident and became lifelong passions, homes built, children raised, futures created because of the opportunities this industry provided us. So while we spend a lot of time talking about patterns, materials, installation methods, and technology, it's worth remembering that, again, this industry has always been about something much bigger. It's about people, it's about relationships, it's about lives that we've built along the way. That's why after more than 50 years, I'm still proud to say that I've spent my life in the wall covering industry. I wouldn't have wanted it any other way, thinking back on it now. The topic I was asked to speak about is wallpaper yesterday and today. And I think it's an interesting subject because wall covering has changed tremendously over the years, tremendously. Not only in design, but also manufacturing materials, installation techniques, and customer expectations. We're going to touch on all these tonight. At the same time, some things have never changed. A quality installation still depends on preparation, craftsmanship, experience, and attention to detail. So, a little about wallpaper history, at least according to me. Um, Wallpaper historians will tell you that modern wallpaper originated in the mid 1700s with, excuse me, with a French printmaker named Jean-Michel Papillon, often referred to as the father of wallpaper because of his development, excuse me, of repeating block printed patterns. I say nope. Humans have been decorating walls and telling stories on them for at least 30,000 years. In a sense, modern wall coverings are simply the latest chapter in a tradition that began when our ancestors painted animals, hunting scenes, and handprints on cave walls. The desire to decorate our surroundings isn't new. It's a part of who we are, whether it was a cave in prehistoric France, a castle in Europe, a colonial home in America, or the dining room of a client we're working for today. People have always wanted their walls to tell a story. Fast forward several thousand years to the American Civil War. So paper was in short supply due to the embargo of the South. And much of the people often had to make use of whatever materials they could to they could find. In some cases, that meant using wallpaper, as you see in that image there, as stationery. Letters were written on the back of blank backs of wallpaper torn from walls and mailed to loved ones serving in the war or living far away. A few years ago, I had the opportunity to purchase this piece. What attracted me most wasn't just the rarity of it, but the incredible story behind it. Think about it. Think for a moment that something originally intended to decorate a wall ended up carrying someone's personal thoughts, hopes, fears, news during one of the most difficult periods in American history. Honestly, think about it. It's actually quite nice design when you think about it too for the time. So to me, that's what makes wallpaper so fascinating. It's never been about just the paper and ink. Every pattern, every room, and sometimes every scrap of wallpaper carries some sort of story. Years ago, wallpaper was viewed very differently than it is today. Wallpaper was often considered a standard decorating product found in nearly every home. We all grew up in homes that probably had wallpaper on every wall, every room, every inch. Small prints, florals, stripes, traditional patterns dominated the market. Materials were generally simpler: paper wallpaper, pulp, easy to use vinyls. Think about Walltex, Sanitest. Fabric back, scrim back, commercial vinyls were just starting to get into the market. Um, and then, of course, the traditional hand trim products that we pretty much found everywhere we we fell over. Uh, so back then, installers dealt with many challenges, and today's new installs may never experience them. For the new folks out there, take a second to think about this. Back then, a lot of there was a lot of hand trim, a lot of untrimmed, and a lot of hand trimming at the table required. There was untrimmed with messy selvage edges. There was no such thing as consistency when rolling these bolts of wallpaper. delicate inks, papers that expanded heavily when pasted. This is a biggie. Limited adhesive technology. When I broke into the industry, we didn't even have paste in a can or a gallon. There's just little boxes of powder that we would mix and hope that the paper stuck. Uh, Another biggie, poor wool preparation standards. Um, you didn't have the technology that we have today when it comes to priming and preparing walls. It was a gallon of oil-based paint off the shelf, and that's what was hung on. Very inconsistent printing methods. Paper bag finals with the consistency of cardboard or tissue paper. When I tell you cardboard, I'm not kidding. The I can recall papers that we would unroll them and they would like a spring snap back together again. I don't know how you guys did it back then. It must have been a lot of cans on the edges holding stuff down. And then, of course, extremely substandard quality control. So at the same time, installers were expected to solve problems in the field and again, important, without the benefit of smartphones. No online videos, manufacturer technical sheets were non-existent, and of course, no instant communication. Who are you going to call? You, you had a landline. Who are you going to call? A lot of installation knowledge was passed on down person to person, almost like an apprenticeship trade. And frankly, many of the installers from that generation became true craftsmen because they had to be. In the 1960s and 70s, wallpaper was generally considered a high water. I'm sorry. In the 1960s and 70s, they're generally considered high watermark for wallpaper industry. Wallpaper was a mainstream decorating product, sold through independent paint stores, decorating centers, furniture stores, specialty wall covering shops. Sales were strong, designs innovative, and there were large networks of regional distributors serving several markets. Let's just see. Oops. 50 to 100 wall covering manufacturers just in the US alone. I did include, of course, the dozens and dozens of hand screen shops dotting the country at that point. Back then, you could walk down a city block in Brooklyn or New York or Jersey City and pass three hand screen shops. There was as many as 100 or so regional wall covering distributors operating across the United States in those days. Unlike today, distribution was highly regionalized. Manufacturers would assign us specific territories for their distribution, and those distributors were expected to sell only within those designated geographic areas. You know how hard that was? When you had a sample book that you could only sell, let's say, in the state of New Jersey and New York, you actually had to cull out those accounts and send those books to those specific accounts. God forbid you sent one out of your territory, it would actually start a war between distributors. I've seen it happen. For example, Washington Walker from my old company was responsible for serving customers throughout the New York, New Jersey, along with portions of Connecticut and Delaware. Similar arrangements existed across the country, creating a network of independent regional distributors that connected manufacturers with retailers, designers, and installers. It was such an easy business back then. You had manufacturers, distributors, retailers. There was no overflow, no back and forth, no companies doing, two tasks at the same time. Everybody had their job. It was a different business model from what we see today. The industry was built around local relationships, personal service, face-to-face interaction. Most businesses were conducted through sales reps, calling on customers in person, and distributors maintained large local inventories to support their territories. In many ways, it was a much smaller world, but it was also a very close-knit industry. Nationally, several thousand retailers and showrooms existed. Uh, these were supported by major wall covering suppliers that included what you see on the screen: Schumacher, York, Thibaut. Those of us remember Imperial and United. And this is the fun part. Additionally, there were some big name corporations that wanted into the wall covering business. Borden, for example, used to own Walltex. I actually own this ruler. I acquired this at a trade show, probably late 70s, thereabouts, and still here on my desk. So a little side note about trade shows and what the industry was like back then. Um, Our industry was supported by two major trade organizations, the Wallpapers Manufacturers Association, or the WMA, and the Wallpaper Distributors Association, the WDA. Again, think about how big our industry was back then, that we had two organizations that were able to maintain a full membership to support us. Today, those organizations have merged into what we know as the Wall Covering Association, or the WA. Both the WMA and WDA held annual conventions that were extremely well attended and served as important gathering places for manufacturers, distributors, suppliers, industry professionals. In addition, and this is, again, think about this, in addition to those, um, there were regional trade shows. They were held throughout the year in the Northeast, the South, the Midwest, West Coast. These events were large. They were vibrant. They drew significant participation, just about from every segment of the industry. Other corporations that got into it uh, were Masonite, Collins and Aikman, General Mills. Um, Let me just bring that up for a second. So, General Mills, this ad here on the left is a wacky advertisement, and I say wacky because if you could read the fine print, it would just it's yeah, it makes you laugh. It's from the Saturday Evening Post, 1943. I actually own this also. I found this on eBay. While General Mills wasn't in the wallpaper business yet at that time period, what they tried to convey here is a fascinating piece of wallpaper history because they were telling readers, and again, this is where it gets wacky, is that agricultural research used for food products was also helping create wallpaper and other similar products. I don't get it, but that's what they were advertising. That's why you see farmers and staring at rolls of wallpaper. Um, they did eventually go into the wall covering business, believe it or not. Uh, in the late 1970s, they created the Wallpapers to Go retail chain. And if, oh, by the way, if you look at that on the left there, and look at the card in the corner, you see a red arrow. So that lists their products. And again, it's hard to read, but that last word, again, remember the year, 1943, says ordinance. So not only were they producing food and maybe wallpaper, um, but they were producing ordnance for the military. Sears, of course. This is a page from a Sears catalog, 1918. What's interesting about it, I point out the pattern in the upper right-hand corner. A double roll of wallpaper was 25 cents, and the border, the matching border, was 4 cents a yard. Oh, and you can get a free catalog if you wanted it. Then there was another company, and I added this to the list only because I wanted to point out again that there's a diversification that was in the industry back then when it came to these large corporations wanting to get a piece of the wallpaper action. There was a company back then called Stalford Chemical. Um, my company actually did business with them for their wallpaper. You've never heard of them probably, but they were founded in 1885 and they manufactured agricultural and industrial chemicals and got into the wall covering manufacturing business back in the 70s and 80s. And then eventually they were sold to Cheeseboro Ponds, but everybody wanted a piece of the wallpaper action back then. So over time, um, Oh, and there's the logos for these companies now. Again, Elsie the cow. So over time, wool covering evolved dramatically. Manufacturing technology improved, better printing consistency, cleaner trimming, improved color matching, more durable inks, uh, better backing systems, advanced adhesive. And again, I go back to what I said about adhesives, and of course, digital printing technology. Um, we see an enormous range of products today: non-wovens, grass cloth, corks, digital murals, performance vinyls, textures, textiles laminated to a backing, natural fibers, metallics, handcrafted products, and boohis, peel and stick products, um, sustainable, and of course, eco-conscious materials. Wallpaper is no longer just decoration. Uh, Today, it's texture, dimension, acoustics, luxury, branding, very important, and of course, artistic expression. Um, this sentence, next sentence, I think it really hits home. Many designers today, and Thibaut works with a lot of decorators and designers. They view the wall covering today as the centerpiece of a room and not just simply background decoration. So many times we hear that they've integrated the wallpaper with their furniture, curtains, whatever the case may be, and they're not going to move anything into that room until the wallpaper's up and matches everything else that they've picked. Today's products, compared to those decades ago, are in many ways easier to install. Um, excuse me. So non-wovens, they're dimensionally stable. Many products strip easier. Better primers exist. Again, it goes back to what I said in the beginning. Adhesives, again, more advanced. And then, of course, very important, technical and peer support. That's what you guys do. Is easier to access. But modern wall covering, okay, here's the caveat to all this, does bring new challenges. Many of today's products are highly specialized. Natural materials react differently to environments. Handmade products contain intentional variation. We've all heard that, right? Digital murals require precise layout planning. Metallics, dark grounds reveal imperfections easier. Heavier vinyls can create memory and seam issues. Uh, some products are extremely installer sensitive. And this is another big one. Customer expectations today are much higher than they were years ago. Th Think about it for a second. Just back think about it. Social media, Pinterest, online photography, and this has always been a bugaboo of mine also, um, have raised customer expectations to levels that are often difficult to achieve in the real world. Clients see professionally styled and edited images online and expect every installation to look perfect under every conceivable condition from every view and angle. As I said, that's always been my little bugaboo. Even with my company, to this day, argue with them sometimes on some of the images they put up online. Installers today are not only mechanics of installation, they are educators, problem solvers, artisans, and often counselors managing customers' expectations. Ironically, in my opinion, one of the biggest changes over the years is not the wallpaper, it's the wall surfaces. And those have been doing this for a while. I think can understand what I mean when it comes to the wall surface. We're faced with many different challenges now. Faster drywall finishing, paint systems that resist absorption, poorly sealed surfaces, textured walls, improper priming. That if you left, what I mean by that is if you leave it to somebody else to tell you their walls are primed, we don't know what we get when you guys show up. And then, of course, there's always moisture environmental issues. Um, Many installation failures we see today, blamed on installers and or the wall covering product, can be traced to wall surface and or environmental issues. As many of you know from experience, if the wall is wrong, the installation will fight you every step of the way. So the role of the installer today, I I believe that installers today deserve more credit than Teresa and other friends of mine that we've had meetings with and met at conferences and conventions who know me. Um, you guys deserve more credit than ever before. And I've listed the things that, I think that you all face when you're out there in the field. You're expected to understand materials, moisture, surface preparation, adhesives, environmental conditions, lighting, pattern flow, product limitations, and again, customer expectations. And you're expected to do all this while working with products that may cost hundreds and even thousands of dollars per roll. And again, a skilled installer, and that's, my opinion, and I think you can all agree with me. But a skilled installer, or as I prefer to call you all artisans, it's a word I like to use, today is not simply hanging wallpaper, but you're protecting the reputation of the manufacturer, the distributor, the designer, the show and or the showroom, and ultimately yourselves. So wallpaper going into the future. I believe what we're going to continue to see is more digital printing. Um, Little comment here on digital printing. I've seen a lot of um, probably going to say, I don't want to say negative, but tough, tough talk on social media about folks who have acquired digital printers and do printing in their basement and or garage and so on and so on. And while yes, they're probably right now a little bit of a thorn in our sides, um, we have to really give them a little bit of ex time to expand. Some of those new folks starting out in their garage or basement might just be the next York or Thibaut of tomorrow. So, we should, just give a little before we jump to say that online product that somebody bought on eBay is, not worth the paper it's printed on. We're going to see more customization, larger and even more detailed murals. I think that's going to be a big one. A lot of sustainable materials. You're all going to see products more and more and more. Us on the wall covering distribution manufacturing side, sustainability is become a hot topic issue. Um, and not only because of the product that we want to put out there, young consumers are very up on product content. And also, governments right now, whether it be federal or local, are starting to regulate materials that would find their way into landfills. So, sustainability is going to be a big hot topic item probably over the next several years because it's just starting right now. More and different textured products, and of course, more performance materials. And what I mean by performance materials that can last through a lifetime, that indestructible. It's people people want it. They're going to be looking for it, and I think some manufacturers are going to go that route. Technology will continue to evolve, but installation skills will always matter. No machine can replace an experienced installer's eye, touch, judgment, and problem-solving ability. In closing, um, wallpaper yesterday and today was about tradition. Wallpaper today is about creativity, technology, craftsmanship, and all of us working together. But the constant between yesterday and today is you, the installer. Um, no matter how advanced manufacturing becomes, the final result still depends on you, the individual standing there at the wall with um, standing there at the wall with tools in their hand. And the craftsmanship is something that deserves recognition, and that craftsmanship is something that deserves recognition and respect. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. I have the chat open, so if anyone has questions for Mike, we did get one earlier, and we would like to hear what the rationale of the industry manufacturers, distributors, on continuing to sell wallpaper using varied units, single rolls, by double rolls, by square foot, etc. Why can't we get a consensus to sell by the bolt?
I am 100% on board with that. I have been probably for the last 30 or 40 years advocating that we should go to the European model and sell by the bolt. I've been told many times, and pretty much the same thing over and over again. It's about the price. It's consumers, U.S. consumers seeing a 59.90 or let's say $60 per single roll price in a wallpaper book as opposed to a $120 price. But yeah, I'm with whoever posed that question. I'm with you. We have to sell by the bolt. It has to be consistent.
Okay. Any other questions we have for Mike? Okay. Well, I want to thank Mike for taking time this evening. He's been a wonderful presenter. We appreciate our relationship with Thibaut and look forward to many more years. And I will go ahead and wrap this up if there's no more questions. Then everyone have a wonderful evening. I look forward to hopefully seeing you at convention coming up in October. Registration is open and early bird is well. So please, please, please sign up if you have questions, concerns. Please reach out to me. Teresa Beekler is my name. I'm the WIA event manager, and you can reach me at events@wallcoveringinstallers.org. Thank you, everyone, for this evening, and I will look forward to our next quarterly meeting that will be announced in the next coming probably 6 weeks or so. And we will look forward to seeing everybody then. Enjoy the rest of your evening.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.